Jax's revenge domain. We're terminating you, effective immediately. Security will escort you out, he said, not even looking up from his brand new company-issued MacBook. Still setting up his email password for the first time. The CEO's son, day one, office one, me. No handshake, no explanation, just a nervous HR manager standing behind him like she was watching someone defuse a bomb with a butter knife. I'm Charles Murphy, 47 years old, and I just watched a 28-year-old punk try to fire the guy who helped build the company he thinks he inherited. The ink on his onboarding packet was still wet, and this kid was already playing executioner. Trevor Rodriguez had his blonde hair slicked back, his Harvard MBA diploma probably still in shipping, and his confidence pumped up like a tire about to blow. He didn't ask questions, didn't even make eye contact. Just read the script off his iPad, word for word. Someone coached him. Probably his old man, or maybe that expensive business coach they hired. I didn't argue. Stood up, straightened my jacket, and handed over my badge with the kind of calm you learn after 28 years of dealing with corporate politics and factory floor emergencies. He thought he was firing me. Thought this was his big power move on day one. All I said was, you might want to tell your father that the board meeting in 3 hours should be interesting. Then I walked out, past Diana Walsh from HR, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the carpet, past security, who seemed more confused than concerned, past the framed photo of the founding team in the lobby that included a younger version of me shaking hands with Howard Rodriguez, back when we had more hope than capital. And hey, while I've got your attention, this is the kind of corporate chaos that makes you wonder who's really running the show, because sometimes the guy getting walked out is the one holding all the cards. 3 hours. That's how long Trevor had between his first firing and his first legal nightmare. In that time, I imagine he celebrated, maybe grabbed a coffee in my old office, his new office if we're being technical, maybe started planning his reorganization strategy, drafting emails about new leadership and fresh directions, the kind of buzzword soup they teach you at Harvard. Meanwhile, the emergency clause activation had already been filed. Section 12B of the partnership agreement, titled simply Fiduciary Breach and Authority Suspension. Buried in the original shareholder documents like a landmine that nobody expected anyone stupid enough to step on. Written by yours truly, reviewed by legal, signed by every board member who thought it was just paranoid insurance. But what happens when someone without equity tries to terminate a founding partner? The answer was simple. Immediate suspension of all executive authority, mandatory board review within 4 hours, and voting control reverting to the majority shareholder. Me. Because while Trevor was measuring his new office for a banisol standing desk, I was hand-delivering the clause activation to every board member and investor tied to this company. Unlike his welcome packet, mine came with certified legal documentation and a 28-year paper trail. He thought I'd go quietly. What he didn't know was that I never built this company to be pushed around by entitled kids who confused a last name with actual authority. I built it to survive exactly this kind of stupidity. The reason my name appears on the original incorporation docs but not the glossy company brochures is simple. I was the operations guy, the guy who made things work while others made speeches. I didn't want the spotlight. I wanted structure, stability, and equity. God, the equity. While Howard was naming conference rooms after his family and handing out plaques to people who'd been here 18 months, I was taking payment in percentages. 0.5 point here, 2 points there. Equity, not bonuses. Ownership, not titles. Every time we landed a big contract or brought in new investors, I negotiated another slice. Quietly, efficiently, I didn't play poker, I owned the casino. It started back when the company was 3 folding tables in a rented warehouse, and Howard thought OSHA compliance was optional. He was a visionary, sure, the kind who could sell ice to penguins, but couldn't remember if we'd paid our insurance or accidentally sent the premium to our parts supplier instead. I stepped in, organized, streamlined, made it all work. For my trouble, he offered me a VP title and a company car. I turned down both. Asked for stock instead. You'd rather own the building than have the corner office, he joked. Exactly, I said. By year 5, I was sitting on 23%. By year 12, 34%. When our original CFO left after a screaming match about financial controls, I picked up his shares at a discount. He needed cash. Divorce lawyers don't work for free. And when Howard's brother tried to sue us for patent infringement and lost spectacularly, he offered to settle privately. I took his remaining 24% in exchange for a bulletproof NDA and a promise to never mention his offshore accounting disaster. 58%. That's where I sat quietly. No fanfare, no press releases, just majority ownership neatly filed with the state. And buried inside that ownership agreement was Section 12B, a clause nobody bothered to read because we'd never needed it. The clause said that if a non-equity executive terminated a founding partner without board approval, all executive powers would be suspended pending shareholder review. It was written after Howard's nephew tried to fire our entire quality control team during a tantrum about production delays. I watched that kid's LinkedIn go dark in 72 hours. That was the last time anyone touched authority they hadn't earned, until today. Because what Trevor didn't understand, what they don't teach you in business school, is that inheriting a title doesn't mean inheriting control. Control isn't handed down like the family silver. It's in the contracts, in the documentation, in the clauses written during late-night calls with paranoid lawyers who ask what-if questions nobody wants to answer. Turns out Section 12B activates exactly like this. One unauthorized termination. No board vote, no documentation, no process. Just a kid with fresh teeth and a new email signature walking into the operations director's office like he was starring in his own personal Succession episode. He had no idea that reading that termination script triggered a corporate trapdoor that had been waiting 15 years for someone dumb enough to step on it. I didn't just file the activation notice, I sent a complete legal package. Partnership agreements, equity breakdowns, voting records, email archives, time-stamped documents, notarized copies. Even included Trevor's termination memo, complete with its grammatical errors and HR signature. They'd laugh about that later. While Trevor was figuring out how to connect to the office, printer, and update his LinkedIn title, the board was reading a memo titled Emergency Suspension of Executive Authority, Section 12B Activation. He was about to learn what real authority looks like. Howard had no idea his newest executive had just stepped on a landmine with his own name engraved on it. Somewhere in the executive wing, in a glass-walled office he hadn't earned and didn't understand, the CEO's son was probably drafting a company-wide email about new leadership and strategic direction. First day, first victory, he might have texted someone. Time to clean house. Meanwhile, downstairs in the real world, board members were opening FedEx envelopes stamped Confidential. Section 12B Activation. Inside was a legal document thick enough to stop a bullet. Cover page. Partnership Clause Activation and Authority Transfer Request. Subheading, Immediate Emergency Board Meeting Required under Bylaw 8.4. Attached was my signed trigger letter, dated that morning at 6:47 a.m., hours before I was terminated. Along with it, complete equity documentation showing every share I'd acquired over 28 years, every transaction, every signed agreement, a full ownership portfolio with legal verification. The reaction wasn't instant panic. It was worse. It was that moment when you realize the ground under your feet isn't as solid as you thought. By the time Howard's personal attorney read the key phrase suspension of executive authority upon unauthorized termination by non-equity appointee, he actually said out loud, "Oh hell." The package also included a meeting mandate. The board was legally required to convene within 4 hours. That clock had already started ticking. I didn't need to be in the building. The law was there. The contracts were there. And by the time Trevor's celebratory Instagram story went live, day one executive decisions with a photo of his new nameplate, his termination authority was already being challenged by 3 lawyers and flagged in our corporate filing system. Meanwhile, across town and in 2 different time zones, board members were canceling lunch meetings, leaving golf games, and calling assistants to reschedule everything. They weren't happy. They were trapped. Because once Section 12B activates, it's not about office politics anymore. It's about fiduciary duty, shareholder protection, liability exposure. Their names were on documents they'd signed years ago, trusting that the paranoid clauses would never be needed. This wasn't family drama. This was legally binding authority transfer. And there, in black and white, was the number they'd forgotten about. 58% majority shareholder voting control. The first call came in at 11:30 a.m. Gerald Thompson, our board chair, calling Howard directly. "We have a problem," was all he said. Howard was in his office, probably admiring his son's bold first-day leadership. That conversation lasted exactly 4 minutes. I know because Diana from HR told me later that Howard's assistant heard yelling through 2 closed doors. Second call came from our general counsel. Third from our lead investor, Vincent Parker. By noon, Howard's phone was buzzing every 10 minutes with variations of the same message. What the hell did Trevor do? The beauty of Section 12B wasn't just that it existed, it was that it was ironclad. 3 law firms had reviewed it over the years. 2 different corporate attorneys had tried to find loopholes for other clients. Every I was dotted, every T crossed. It was the kind of legal engineering you pay premium rates for and hope you never need. But Trevor had needed it for me. And now it was active. The IT director, Neil Carter, got the strangest request of his career around 1 p.m. Trevor wanted access to the financial systems, the customer database, and the manufacturing scheduling software. Neil checked the access logs, saw the termination notice, then checked the corporate hierarchy tree. Trevor's name was there, but it was grayed out. Pending review. I can't give you access, Neil told him. Your authority status is flagged. Flagged by who? The system. Automatically. When Section 12B activated this morning. Trevor stared at him. What's Section 12B? That's when Neil realized the kid had no idea what he'd triggered. You should probably talk to legal, he said. But legal wasn't taking Trevor's calls anymore. They were too busy preparing for an emergency board meeting and trying to explain to Howard why his son's first executive decision might be his last. By 2 p.m., the building felt different. Quieter. People walked faster, talked in lower voices, avoided eye contact. Word spreads fast in manufacturing. The floor supervisors knew something was happening. The department heads were checking their phones constantly. Even the security guards seemed tense. Trevor tried to schedule a department meeting. His calendar request was automatically denied. He tried to send a company-wide email about strategic changes. IT blocked it. Pending authority verification, he tried to access the quarterly financial reports. Access denied. By 2:30, he was standing in Diana Walsh's office, demanding to know why his systems weren't working. Your executive access has been suspended, she told him. Suspended by who? Legal review. Section 12B of the partnership agreement. What does that mean? Diana looked at him like he was asking her to explain quantum physics. It means your termination of Charles Murphy this morning triggered an automatic authority suspension clause. All your executive privileges are frozen pending board review. The color drained from Trevor's face. That's impossible. It's in the contract you signed yesterday, she said. Page 47. You might want to read it. Howard was on hole 7 at Riverside Country Club working on his short game and his tan when the first call came in. Ignored it. Second call, ignored that too. Third call, persistent and sharp from his general counsel's personal line, he finally answered. This better be important, he barked. The voice on the other end was flat, professional. You need to get here now. Why? Trevor signed something. Click. He didn't finish the round, didn't even change out of his golf shoes. Just stormed to his Escalade and made it back to the office in under 25 minutes. A land speed record for someone who usually needed 2 assistants just to find his car keys. When he arrived, legal was waiting. So was Ray Foster, our CFO, Diana from HR, looking like she wanted to crawl under her desk, and a conference room full of board members who'd stopped smiling about an hour ago. The general counsel didn't waste time, opened his briefcase, took a breath, and read. Per Section 12B of the amended partnership agreement, any executive termination carried out by a non-equity appointee without prior board vote shall result in immediate revocation of all interim leadership authority, suspension of appointments made within 48 hours, and automatic transfer of executive control to the majority shareholder pending emergency review. Howard froze. Looked like he was trying to translate a foreign language. Then his jaw tightened, his face went red, and he asked, "Who signed the termination order?" Silence. Who the hell authorized this? Ray Foster cleared his throat. Your son. Alone. The quiet in that room was surgical. Howard blinked once, then again. The color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. He doesn't have termination authority, Howard said, as if saying it could somehow reverse time. No, the attorney replied. He doesn't. He was appointed by you, ratified by the board, but he holds 0 equity. His authority is entirely derivative, which means under Section 12B, his unilateral termination of a founding partner is invalid and triggers automatic suspension. Howard ran his hands through his hair, pacing. This is a mistake. I'll talk to him. We'll fix this. There's no fixing this, the lawyer cut him off. The clause is active. Documentation was filed before the termination was executed. You've got 90 minutes before the mandatory meeting begins. But he's my son. He's not a shareholder, the attorney said simply. And right now he's sitting in Charlie's office asking IT how to access the financial systems he has no legal right to see. Howard sat down hard. No longer the confident patriarch of a $320 million manufacturing operation, just a man who'd handed a loaded gun to someone who thought the safety was decoration. "What do we do now?" he asked, voice barely audible. The general counsel closed his file. "You sit in that boardroom. You listen. And when Charlie walks in, because he will walk in, you remember that he owns 58% of this company." "God help us all," Howard muttered. Meanwhile, Trevor was having his own crisis 3 floors up. The termination that had felt so decisive at 8 a.m. now seemed like a different lifetime. His computer access was limited, his email was flagged, his phone calls to board members went straight to voicemail. He'd tried calling his father 6 times. No answer. He'd tried the general counsel. The line was busy. He'd even tried Vincent Parker, our lead investor, who picked up on the first ring and said, "Trevor, you need to stop talking and start listening. Find a lawyer. Today." By 2:45 p.m., Trevor was sitting in his temporary office, the one that used to be mine, staring at a printed copy of Section 12B that Diana had reluctantly provided. The legal language was dense, but the implications were crystal clear. Every executive decision he made as a non-equity appointee could be overturned by shareholder vote. Every termination, every hiring, every strategic directive. And he'd just terminated the majority shareholder. The manufacturing floor had gone quiet too. Production supervisors were getting mixed signals. Department heads were checking with legal before making any decisions. Even routine approvals were getting flagged for review. Neil Carter from IT had the unenviable job of explaining to Trevor why his access to critical systems was being gradually restricted. "It's automatic," he kept saying. "The system recognizes the clause activation. I can't override it without board approval. So I'm locked out of my own company?" "It's not your company," Neil said quietly. "According to the partnership agreement, it never was." That hit Trevor like a brick wall. He'd spent the morning thinking he was cleaning house, making tough decisions, showing leadership. Now he was learning he'd never had the authority to make any of those decisions in the first place. The boardroom was filling up by 3:30. Gerald Thompson arrived first, followed by Ray Foster and 2 outside directors. Vincent Parker dialed in from his office in Chicago. The general counsel set up his materials at the far end of the table, legal documents stacked like evidence in a trial. Howard walked in at 3:35, looking older than his 60 years. He'd changed, out of his golf clothes, but still had the stunned expression of someone who'd just watched his world tilt sideways. "Is there any way to stop this?" he asked the room. "Stop what?" Gerald Thompson replied. "Following our own partnership agreement? Honoring the contracts we all signed?" "Charlie's been planning this," Howard said. "Charlie's been protecting this." Vincent Parker's voice crackled through the speaker. "From exactly what happened today. Your son fired a founding partner without cause, without process, without authority. The clause exists for this exact situation." Trevor walked in at 3:40, looking like he'd aged 5 years in one afternoon. He took a seat halfway down the table, not at the head where he'd probably imagined himself sitting. "Where's Charlie?" he asked. "He'll be here," Gerald said, checking his watch, "at exactly 4 p.m., as specified in the emergency meeting protocol." The room fell quiet. Outside, the late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the parking lot. Inside, 8 people sat around a conference table waiting for a man they thought they'd seen escorted out of the building 6 hours earlier. Trevor kept checking his phone. Howard stared at the table. The lawyers shuffled papers. Everyone else just waited. At 3:59, footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. At exactly 4 o'clock p.m., I walked in. Same navy suit I'd worn to 1,000 production meetings, carrying the same leather briefcase I'd used for 15 years. Not flashy, not dramatic, just professional. The kind of presence that doesn't need introduction. The room was full, but silent. Howard sat with his head down, studying his hands. Trevor looked smaller than he had that morning. His Harvard confidence deflated like a punctured tire. The board members had their legal pads ready, but nobody was writing. I didn't sit, opened my briefcase and read from the document inside. My voice was calm, matter of fact. As majority shareholder, I formally request a binding vote to rescind all executive appointments made in the past 48 hours pending full board review. The words landed like concrete blocks. Nobody moved at first. Just that terrible silence when everyone realizes the game has changed completely. Gerald Thompson, our board chair, cleared his throat. Motion received and entered into record. Will be considered immediately. Howard didn't speak, didn't even look up. Trevor tried to say something, but no sound came out. His mouth moved, but the words had evaporated somewhere between his brain and his vocal cords. I still didn't sit. When you own the building, you don't ask permission to stand. The legal review took exactly 23 minutes. 23 minutes of reading contracts, checking signatures, verifying equity positions. 23 minutes while Trevor sat there realizing that titles don't mean power and family names don't mean authority. When they finished, Gerald Thompson looked up from his documents. Section 12B is valid and properly activated. All executive appointments made by non-equity management are hereby suspended pending shareholder review. Then he looked at me. The board recognizes Charles Murphy as majority shareholder and interim executive chairman, effective immediately. I finally sat down. In the chair at the head of the table. My chair. The rest happened quickly. Trevor's access was terminated, his nameplate removed, his executive email disabled, not out of spite, out of legal necessity. When you trigger a clause like Section 12B, everything moves fast and by the book. Howard signed the paperwork without reading it. What else could he do? Fight a legal battle against his own partnership agreement? What happens now? Trevor asked quietly. His first sensible question all day. Now we run the company properly, I said. No more appointments without board approval. No more terminations without cause. No more assuming that last names equal leadership qualifications. Vincent Parker's voice crackled through the speaker from Chicago. Charlie, what's your assessment of current operations? Solid fundamentals, strong client relationships, good manufacturing capacity. We lost some momentum this quarter with the leadership uncertainty, but nothing we can't recover from. The Peterson Industries contract? Still on track. They were concerned about management stability, but that's resolved now. Trevor looked confused. What Peterson contract? The $180 million deal you nearly killed this morning, Ray Foster said. They called at noon asking if our management changes would affect delivery schedules. I didn't know about any Peterson contract. That's because you fired the guy who's been managing it for 6 months, I said. The meeting wrapped up by 5:15 p.m. New organizational structure, clear reporting lines, proper approval processes. Everything Trevor should have learned before he walked into that office this morning. As people filed out, Howard lingered. When the room was empty except for us, he finally looked up. I'm sorry, Charlie, I thought he was ready. He wasn't. But that's not your fault, it's his. What do I tell him? Tell him to read contracts before he signs them. Tell him to understand companies before he tries to run them. Tell him there's a difference between being given authority and earning it. Howard nodded slowly. Are we okay? The company, I mean? We're better than okay. We're back to functioning like a business instead of a family drama. 6 months later, wait, let me get this right. 18 months later, we landed the biggest contract in company history. $240 million over 5 years, manufacturing specialized equipment for 3 different industries. The deal Trevor had nearly derailed with his first day power play. The company's doing better than it has in years. Turns out when you remove the ego and the entitlement, focus on actual business operations instead of organizational chart politics, things improve. Howard's still around, still on the board, but he's learned the difference between being a founder and being an owner. He asks questions now instead of making assumptions, reads the contracts before signing them. Trevor's working at a consulting firm in Boston. Probably learned some valuable lessons about reading the fine print and understanding corporate structure before attempting hostile takeovers. Diana Walsh from HR tells me he calls sometimes, asking about openings. I tell her we'll consider his application just like any other candidate. If he wants back in, he can start at the bottom and work his way up. Earn it this time. Neil Carter from IT still laughs about the morning Trevor couldn't access the financial systems. Funniest thing I've seen in 15 years, he says. Kid trying to take over a company he didn't even understand how to log into. Me? I'm still here, still in the same office, still making sure things work the way they're supposed to. Same leather briefcase, same coffee mug, same commitment to getting the job done right. The difference is now everyone knows who's really running the show. No more assumptions, no more confusion about authority, no more kids thinking they can walk in and rearrange a company they didn't build. You know what the best part is? The contract, the real victory, wasn't just about the money or the vindication. It was about proving that experience beats entitlement every time. That respect is earned, not inherited. That sometimes the guy getting escorted out is the one who owns the building. That's a lesson they don't teach in business school. But after 28 years in manufacturing, after building something from nothing and protecting it from people who think authority comes with DNA, I can tell you it's the most important lesson there is. Some fights are worth having. Some contracts are worth writing. And sometimes, if you're patient enough and smart enough, you get to remind everyone exactly who built the place they're trying to take from you. In business, like in life, the real power isn't in the title on your door. It's in the contracts in your safe and the patience to use them when it matters. Remember this, the loudest person in the room is rarely the one who owns it, and the quietest exit often sets up the most devastating return.